And Dr. Santiago, nice to hear. Nice to hear you too, thank you. Well, sorry, nice to receive your message. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to resume the sharing in a minute. Just whiz back to the beginning, and then I thought I'd talk a little bit about the issue of risk. I think CIMA themselves have talked a lot about risk, and I've spoken to quite a few people, some of whom have overblown the level of complexity of the risk analysis needed at the gateway level. So I think it's quite important just to be able to see how risk would be dealt with. So that might be quite a general sort of a sense, but hopefully if I do that over the next sort of 10-15 minutes, then we can elicit. You can switch off the camera. Okay, that's not that helpful. Right, let me. I hope you didn't see me blow my nose. Resume. And your sound isn't very clear. Oh goodness. So I've got Dr. Santiago telling me that his is clear and loud. But that doesn't apply to everybody. Okay. Let me see if I can turn off the me bit. Let's get the camera out of the way. Stop sharing for a minute. I haven't been saying anything, so that's why it might be here. Right, let me see if it's on my participants list. And camera off. Okay. Now share screen again. And let me bring up these. Oh, Wilfred, I've got everyone muted as far as I'm concerned. Okay, let me just pull up my list again of people. Okay, let me try again. Are you hearing me loud and clear? There's always a chance, sadly with me, that I might not. Oh, good. Okay, well, I will proceed. As you can see, I'm sharing the screen, which is the front page of the pre-scene of the case study, and it's an opportunity for us to just think about what's in the case study, and also for me to address the area of risk, and in our case, the aspects of risk from the syllabus mainly centres on the 4 different approaches that we can take depending on what the different types of risk are. And I thought that would be a good area for me to look at this morning. I recognise some of your names, other names I think I'm seeing for the first time. So we're well aware that this is a business that's in the server provision, so we're looking at providing service to other businesses. We've got the initial ones, which are the the main servers that they've been selling for several years. And these are made up of blades that they need, and these tend to come on a very competitive market from the manufacturers who basically have generic products that we then fit together when we sell on to our customers. So it's an area of the business where we could be quite seriously disadvantaged if we didn't have these blades and we weren't able to put them together. But I think if I put together before I put together the list that I was going to, let me ask you to try and tell me, what are the 4 ways in which we can treat risk? So we have 4 initial letters. Who wants to put something into the chat box? You're not able to hear me. Oh, bother. Right. Because we've got a mixture of responses in the hearing. Now, according to my oh, well done, Suchi. Well done. That was what I was thinking of. Swarthy. I don't. Good. Oh, good. Sorry. Oh, thank you. Oh, I didn't believe to swallow his message. Right, let me proceed with the TARA. Thank you. And let's see. Right, Suchi very kindly has told us that the 4 initial letters for these ways of treating risk are T, A, R, R, A. And what I'd like you to do is to tell me what these initial letters stand for and the types of risks that we might. No, just tell me what the letters stand for, and then we'll think about the risks that SparkSpace face and how we could apply these. Okay. Anybody want to perhaps tell me what the letter T could stand for? Oh, brilliant. Oh, Suchi, you are my star performer today. Transfer. Okay, so, and Suchi, you are absolutely on the ball. Brilliant, absolutely well done. And reduce and avoid. Very, very good. Okay. And Kim Borev, thank you very much. Well done. So we've had some good contributions there, and we have now got the 4 different ways in which we might treat risk. Okay. So certain risks certain risks are not a high impact and are not a high probability, but others could have a high impact and they could be high probability. So we have to juggle these two different alternatives. So just have a little think about that for a moment and try and identify some of the risks from the SparkSpace scenario which we could consider that we would just have to accept. Right, any ideas of the acceptable risks? Well, think about the blades that we were looking at a few minutes ago. Given that there's a large number of alternative suppliers, we could probably think that if we're going to be looking at the risk of not being able to get these crucial items, we might be able to perhaps accept that, or if we wish to, we might want to try and reduce the impact that that might have. We don't know very much about the purchasing arrangement that they have within the company, but certainly if you were with me in one of my other classes, we looked at Porter's value chain. We identified that procurement was quite a strong area in terms of adding value. So in the reduction area, perhaps we could look at the continuity of supply by having contacts with alternative suppliers. Right. So we could make some contact with some alternative suppliers, and therefore that would reduce the overall risk. It doesn't reduce the likelihood of it happening, but what it does reduce is the impact that it would have on us if it did happen. Okay. Now, if we're going to continue with this whole area, let me copy so that we can work our way through. Because I know that you don't have to put up with me very long this morning, but here we've got the sequence that goes through. This is what underpins the whole addition of value as it goes from these basic ingredients into the finished service. And so we have a risk in terms of these highly skilled people who enable us to achieve our high value added. Sorry about that, I managed to press the wrong button. I know your nose is breathing. Right, sorry about that. So, these are rather difficult ones for us to be able to cope with, because if you think about the risk of losing key staff, then it's going to have a high impact. We're generally quite good in terms of looking after our staff, and we've got the highly experienced and qualified staff as one of the items listed on the SWOT analysis that's been provided for us. But this is a core competence of SparkSpace, and we might consider it low in terms of our probabilities or likelihoods. But even so, we have to deal with it. So typically, if you've got something which is high impact and low likelihood, what would we tend to, what's the traditional approach to treating that kind of a risk? You've got 4 to choose from, but I think we've managed to eliminate the idea of reduce. Anyone want to come forward with a possible suggestion? No? Well, the normal approach for that kind of one is a transfer. And our most common example of transfer is insurance. And you could imagine this in terms of the factory. They may have a low likelihood of a fire, but that they would take out insurance so that they would have funds available to relocate the factory and to be able to keep going with the assembly. But if so, that would be a very traditional risk dealt with using the transfer approach. Now, what do we do in terms of this risk for us? Well, we've got Spark Innovate, which is working with the university, and I think it stopped bleeding a bit. Just keep dabbing it with your tissue. Sorry. So we've got another way in which they're bringing in new members of staff. It's the recognition that within the Western University, they are able to access a pool of highly educated members of the bleeding stops. And so the staff are accessed from the university, Western Central University, and as such, that then helps them to have this ongoing source. So it's not an insurance arrangement or a transfer of the risk, it's that they've dealt with it using an ongoing supply base. Can you go in the front room and leave me just to do this on my own, and I'll be with you in about 10 minutes. So, looking then at the pre-scene again, We've got the lines that are near 100% capacity. I think that this is quite a significant area within the within the pre-scene, and we've got the additional risk of lost sales because of this backlog arrangement. So if we're now looking at risk of lost sales, how can we deal with this issue? Well, we go back to the TARA approach. This is a capacity issue. It's a risk which we don't know. We certainly would say that it's got a high likelihood. Because it doesn't take much for us to get a large order and immediately have the problem of, well, some of the other more standard servers would have to wait. We know that the standard servers tend to be competing in a price competitive market. So because they are competing in that kind of a market, we are fairly generic. And if you're dealing in that sort of area and you turn around to a customer and say, I'm sorry, we've got a delay, well, they can simply say, well, that's all right, we'll just go and buy from another supplier. So that kind of risk this needs an approach which is going to work long term, and this seems to be a permanent problem. So we're going to have to, well, let me see if you'd like to volunteer which one of our 4 words for this one. Is this something we would want to transfer? Is this something we would want to reduce? Is this something we would want to accept? Or is this something we would want to avoid? I would agree with you, Kimbrough. So well done. So we would be looking for a reduce approach. And if we're able to separate out the different activities, we could probably we'll probably look for a outsource solution, and by finding an outsource solution, we're able to then and sure, there's a lot of jargon within this expression, but it isn't jargon for jargon's sake. I've managed to misspell the word competencies, but your examiner would know exactly what I was trying to say. So here we are looking for outsource solutions, and we're looking at threshold competencies, which you may well recall are those areas which are not critical to our success. They're not areas where we have a specialist knowledge that no other company has. It's simply able to transfer these more basic tasks into another company so that they're able to then do it for us, thereby eliminating the risk of the backlogs. And so if we reduce it from a high likelihood to a low likelihood, then we're able to manage the scenario quite well. Okay, so you've had me for quite a short period of time this morning. I make it 2 minutes before 10:30 UAE time. Are there Rahman has said, what about the cost? It may go up because of outsourced. Yes, and I think that whenever we look at risk, Rahman, we are looking at the transfer cost, we're looking at the reduction cost, we're looking at the avoidance cost, and we're looking at the acceptance cost. So whenever we are looking at risk management, we are looking at things that have a cost. And I think that what we're doing within all of these is we are recognizing that in order to reduce the risk or the impact of the risk, then we are going to have to incur additional costs to make that happen. So that none of these are cost-free. They are simply we incur costs in order that we're able to manage the risk that we're having to face. So if I scroll back, and here we were looking at the risk of losing staff, and so we are spending money with the Spark Innovate idea in order that we have that continuity of supply of new potential staff. Again, that's a cost to us that we incur in the knowledge that we are dealing with fairly dynamic and ambitious members of staff who may well come and work with us and then want to move on to another company if they hear of more exciting opportunities. So all four of the ways to treat risk do have a cost. Now the avoid one is the original cost. If we avoid, wrong way around. If we accept, we face the original cost, the business having to grind to a halt, or in the most extreme case, having to pay for the restoration of a factory in the event of a fire. So thank you for your question. If there are no further questions, I hope that you found this useful. I think our approach is the approach the examiner likes. That everything that we look at through the eyes of SparkSpace. There's no attempt to sort of start with a theory and then to try and fit things into the theory. All the time we're looking at the issues within SparkSpace and then using a theory to try to explain how we deal with it. It's the way to structure the answer. Okay, I now sign off at this stage, but I may well be able to look in towards the last sort of 15 minutes of the class, and if you have any questions for me, then you can either address them to me then, or you could contact Anju, and I'm sure that she'd be able to send them on to me. So thank you very much for letting me be involved, and I will wish you all the very best for next week and your own exams.
Hi everyone, good morning. I guess you can hear me well. Just if you can comment on the chat box stating that you can hear me. Right, great, thank you. So I'm gonna be sharing my screen with you in a second or so. Just give me a moment. Right. So I guess you can see my screen now. So this morning I want to basically go through with you some of the key areas on how to pass the exam. Okay, and because that's quite critical. So one thing at this point in time, it's given that you've gone through all your the case study many times, you've evaluated it, you've kind of dissected it basically, and gone through it many times. So I just want to talk to you about the results, right? So when they're looking at marking, there are three areas that they will be looking into, and we will go through these three elements as well, right? It's basically you strong, moderate, or fail. These are the three elements that they will be judging you on based on the competencies. Yeah, so the competencies play a significant role in your exam, and you need to know these competencies. So the pass mark is 60%, and it's a scale score, and you will get your results 3 weeks, right? And your performance will be against each of those competencies. And the competencies are, at this point, if you remember, they are your technical, your people, the technical, people, leadership, and business, right? The technical competency, they're expecting a greater portion here from you because you're at a mid-manager level, and at that point you're looking at decisions for medium term. So hence there will be quite a bit of technical aspects that you need to evaluate, you need to bring in at this point in time. So you have to be pretty good in your technical part of it. Having said that, not to forget your people, leadership, and business skills. Okay. Now, again, at times the students get moderate and then still fail, right? And the questions are asked, how did this happen? One of the reasons is you have not sufficiently written enough to that particular point. Now, how do you know that one is enough? Is you're looking at least minimum 20 words per minute, right? So 20 words per minute, that's the kind of benchmark you should have. And if it's a 45-minute answer a question, so your answer should be in the range of 700, about 700-800 average, right, words. So now you've got a view of how much you need to write. Yeah, you cannot just put in bullet points and expect for you to pass. It's not going to happen, and that's where the examiner will quite clearly tell you that you have not passed. Your answer might be right, however, the examiner would state doesn't have sufficient breadth or depth in it, right? So that will again make you fail. So this is a very important aspect when it comes to passing the exam. So when it comes to, again, answer find out how many questions are there in that one question, right? And then answer those questions, right? Because I've seen students immediately go into one part of the question and forgotten about the rest of the parts. Again, the examiner will fail you if you've not answered well, okay, all the parts. So he's expecting you to basically write to all the questions that have been put forward to you. So these are your competence. Basically, these are the grades for your competency. Strong means you've performed well. Integrating across the subjects. Now we'll talk about this integration separately, because this is, I find a lot of students are finding this, the meaning of this, quite difficult, how to apply this, right? So you have three subjects, underlying subjects, E2, P2 and F2, right? You integrate across the subjects when you're answering. So that means you're bringing the knowledge of these three subjects into this case study. And you have, of course, demonstrate the competencies, right? Moderate, you've exceeded the minimum competency, right? But, you know, it's just at the minimum, just above the minimum, right? Because you may get a moderate and you may fail, right? Or else you may get moderate and you may pass as well. This means a high moderate. So be careful. Again, I need to emphasize the importance of bringing the other three subjects in when you're answering a question, right? So fail, of course, means you have not made the mark. Okay. Now integration. Integration is a big, it does carry quite a few marks, and it is important for us to understand how to score marks when it comes to this integration, right? You're linking the three key papers, that is again E2, P2 and F2. Any knowledge that's there, you should bring into your case study and demonstrate your knowledge on this particular area, right? The next part is you will have 4 questions. You should not answer these questions in kind of an isolated fashion or a siloed fashion. And because the reason why we say we should not do this is the way the examiner has asked the question or put forward the question. You will see there is continuity. I have an example for you here, and you will see that continuity even in your questions. Hence, similarly, you need to follow when you're answering it, you need to follow that continuity as well, right? And where you can use information from the earlier questions to support some of the arguments on the later on questions, right? Now, what do we mean? This is May 2016, variant 1, task 1, right? What are they saying? I'd like you to look at these for me. There is a memo from Joe that IC should start to offer same-day service for spectacles with progressive lenses, right? So this is the scenario, same-day services, right? So I'm reading the last one before the last para. I need your report to cover Greta's concerns about profitability of the project. Please focus on the problems associated with estimating revenues and also the issues she has raised about quality control and efficient workload scheduling, right? So very operational. And they're talking about the same-day service, a new kind of a service that they're offering, but that is linked to they also have to invest in this particular project. what is the concern about the profitability, and also the operations around it, the quality and the workload. Okay, now that is the first task that you have to do. Okay, so once you answer this question, you will, after 45 minutes, it's just a 45 minutes, you go into the next one, right? Next question is on, hi, I don't know if you have already heard, but at the board meeting yesterday, there was a lengthy discussion of my plan to introduce the same-day service. I'll send you an extract from the meeting minutes. The board has agreed to launch a pilot scheme to test how well this would work. Right? Now you can see the question is flowing from that first question. They're setting the scene about the same-day service, right? A proposal. And then the second one to say, well, we want to launch a pilot program. Right? So it is flowing on. And the examiner is asking, I need a briefing paper from you as quickly as possible. First, how should we set up a team to manage this pilot scheme? Right? It's on a pilot scheme, a team. So they're asking about the team dynamics. Secondly, the board is concerned that it will be difficult to evaluate the success of the pilot scheme. What performance measures may be appropriate? So the KPIs, right? So as you can see, the first thing, your report was to talk about the profitability of the project, right? And problems associated with estimating revenues, right? And also the quality control and workload scheduling. So that was your first answer to this particular, your answer will be framed on those topics. But when you are going into your pilot scheme and the success, right, the success of this pilot scheme, you shouldn't forget the issues that you spoke about in your previous one about quality control, work scheduling. So you need to link those things as KPIs. What are the KPIs for work scheduling, good work, and good quality? You need to bring those into your task too, right? You should not, again, start this particular question in a siloed fashion and say, right, now let me think of it afresh as if I have not heard about it before, right? If you do that, again, this is the point where examiner will not give you marks for integration, right? Even though you've written a great answer, the examiner will not give you marks. Let's look at the third one. The third one again talks about the results of the pilot study of the same-day progressive lens have just come in, right? So now we've done the pilot. Now the results have come in. We offer same-day service progressive lenses from the large branch in Central City, right? So all three of these shops are served by the same laboratory, right? So Joe claims that the pilot study has been resounding success, although I don't fully agree with him. I'm forwarding a copy of his comments. Okay, so Alex is not really agreeing with it. And I need you to prepare a response to Joe. I need you to look at the whole question of whether the results of the pilot study actually indicate success, right? Now, here we are challenging the pilot study, right? And they're also talking about a weighted average cost of capital. So the first, you can see how the same thing, the same scenario is about the same day service is continuing into task 3. Task 4, we look at it and it says, I'm glad I bumped into you. Thanks to the work you've carried out on the Express Spectacles project, there has been an interesting new development which could enable us to roll out the Express services much more quickly. We have identified a small firm of opticians which has lens laboratory in each city where it has a branch. So now combining with another company, right? So I would like you to explain what the financial reporting implications would be of the acquisition and the fair value adjustment required. Right? So you can see this whole thing is about one particular scenario, and that scenario is about same day service, right? We started, if you look at it, on the 1st of June, right? So the task one was 1st of June, right, where they're discussing and they asked you to look at the profitability of the project and the issues. The next was on the 8th of June, right, where you have to write something about the pilot scheme, right, and the performance measures. The third one is on the 5th of December. So after a fair while, right, they've done their evaluation. So take these dates also into consideration, right? And then the last one is in January. So from June to January, it's taken a fair amount of time for the company to go get into this same day service specs, right? And you need to bring in that integration. You can see how a very nice scenario is built up, right, and presented to you, and you need to provide the answer in the same fashion. Okay, I hope that is clear. Can you just let me know in the chat box your comments, and want to find out whether this integration aspect is clear to you all. I'm very, very interested to know. Well, I'm just waiting for your comments on the chat box. Great, Sergey. Others? Yeah, brilliant. Because I spent a bit of time on this, because this is something very easy marks that you can get, and it can be from a pass to fail, right? This is very important to you. Because when we first started lecturing itself, it was a bit confusing even to the lecturers what it was, right? Till we really got our hands into this and really understood. Okay, great. So that's good. Everybody's clear on this. Let's go to the next one. Right. Now, this is about how to prepare your answer. Now, please read your question very well, right? I have come across many students who have not interpreted the question correctly. First, identify how many questions are there in this one question immediately. Answer all the requirements, right? You need to have a logical answer. Don't put everything. If they're asking, if there is a comment about value chain, they've spoken about a value chain, it doesn't mean that you have to write everything that you know about value chain into it. They may not be even asking you about a value chain there. They've just mentioned the word, and just so that to see whether you will go astray, right? Sometimes they tend to give a lot of numbers, but the numbers really may not be required for your answer, right? And sometimes student gets very excited and start calculating things on actually something that they need not have done. So please identify what the questions are. In that one question, how many questions are there? I would suggest that you type them and as headings and keep them very clearly, so that then you can go in and you will make sure that you will answer those subtopics, right? Now, as Sandy mentioned, we have to first talk in the sense of SparkSpace, right? What is SparkSpace going through? What is it that they're going through from a business sense? And then bring in the theories, right? The theory will be actually giving you the justification or the structure necessary to answer it. For example, there might be some issues with our people, right? And there might be issues with suppliers. So you have to demonstrate in a business sense the issue here first. And then if it's to do with let's say with the supplier, we're having issues with the supplier, and suppliers, actually the issue is suppliers people are having, there is a strike there, right? So which is impacting us. So what we would talk about at this point in time is the issue. Actually, we start off the question about talking, this is the issue, how it will impact our company, the operations. Then we will bring in also to further evaluate it using Mandela's matrix, right? Because it is a people thing. We need to identify, can we work with the supplier to help him to overcome this, right? What other methods are there for us to look at this operational problem, right? Because it's a risk, right? Risk to our operations. Now, conform to the format required. What does that mean? If they're asking you to write an email, write an email. If they're saying write a report, it should be a report, right? And you need to identify, you need to state very clearly that it should be, if it's an email that is quite formal, you respond in a formal manner. If it is informal, you respond in that informal manner. So the most important thing here is you shouldn't be responding to the questions as if you are at the exam, right? You should be responding as if you're in that company. You're really in that company. You're feeling, what the company is going through, and then responding in that particular role, right? Otherwise, you're going to face quite a bit of problems because you are writing in the third person kind of manner, right? So the next few points here, what we are stating is how to market our answers, right? This is another very important thing. Remember, your examiner is a human being, right? The examiner is correcting many papers. So we have to make it easy for the examiner to give us marks. Write short, concise sentences. Don't have semicolons and go on writing very long-winded sentences, okay? Make it easy. Headings and subheadings should be there. And short paragraphs to make for each point, have a short paragraph, right? So that the examiner understands, okay, this person has written 5 points, it's 5 paragraphs. It's very easy. Within the paragraph, when you start writing more and more points, examiner will not pick out, right, those points, and you will lose marks. Yeah. Selective underlining. You do not go on underlining everything. Doesn't make then what is so important. Only the important things you will underline, where you want the examiner to focus on, and of course answer within time, right? Now, what does that mean? You have 45 minutes. Let's say you finish the first question in 35 minutes, yeah, and then you think, okay, I've saved 10 minutes, I'm going to the next question, right? Which will give me 45 minutes plus another 10. No, you will not be getting that. So please remember, if you finish 10 minutes or 5 minutes early and go to the next question, you will lose that time. So the second question, again, you will have another 45 minutes, right? So be careful. Spend the time that you want, the 45 minutes fully in the particular question, right? That particular question. Now the next one. You should plan the answer, because the reason is, as soon as you see the question, a lot of thoughts come to mind. Don't go on just like that, start writing the answer, right? Because you need to structure it. Examiner is looking for a coherent, structured answer, right? Here again, as a rule, planning an answer should take up 1/3 of the time available. So of your 45 minutes, 1/3 should be your planning, right? So there are 3 tools that you can use, right? On screen scratchpad, right? You can access it at the time during the exam, right? And what is written on the scratchpad, you cannot copy or paste it on the main answer, right? So that is one thing you have to remember. So that is one way. Second one is a wipe clean notepad given out as at the test center. If you will, once you fill up the whiteboard, you can ask for another one, right? The third one is the space available for presenting your answer on the screen. So on that itself, you can do your planning, right? But remember to clean it up prior to before you submit everything, right? Before everything is completed, remember to clean it up, because the examiner might get confused. He might not know, well, is this part of your answer or not? So it's best that you clean it up. So there are 3 spaces where you can plan your answer. You need to plan your answer. I cannot emphasize how important this is. This will keep you, this kind of practice will be really good even at the strategic level. Okay, this will help you. You need to address the competencies, right? That is important, and that is the 4 competencies. You just write it on your scratch pad as you go into the exam. These are the 4 competencies that they're looking for, because then you don't forget, right? When you're writing your answer, you don't forget it, right? You need to, like Sandy mentioned, the 3rd point, first and foremost, you need to make sure that you address the task at hand and all aspects of it, right? If you do this, and then also make sure you look at the competencies, so that the competencies will nicely come into your answer, right? Now the examiner's report, February 2016, right? This is quite interesting, because he's saying there were some very short answers to the case study. Some candidates did not seem to know much about the industry or the company, right? It's quite bad, actually. You have been given the pre-scene several weeks, so you need to know your company and the industry, right? There were also answers which had been learned, and even though the question was different, just wrote a prepared answer. Now, I cannot tell you how many students have asked us to give them a prepared answer, right? So we were like, so you want to memorize something? But how can you memorize, right? How can you memorize when we can't predict the questions, right? So students are looking for some of these, to memorize certain things and put it out at the exam. Examiner has caught on to this, because you can really identify, you can see the student has actually not related the answer to that particular question, right? And the person is just writing something that has been memorized, and actually it doesn't link even to the question. So avoid it, because examiners hate this kind of thing, and that shows you lack creativity and you lack the in-depth practical theories to manage a situation in this kind of context, right? Because it shows that you can only memorize something and put it across. So that doesn't give you a good good view. The examiner will fail you for that. So if you're thinking of memorizing stuff or memorized stuff before, please be very, very careful if you're trying to apply those, right? They said some candidates demonstrate an alarmingly poor understanding of several syllabus areas which are core, right? Like value chain, balance scorecard, ratios, share prices, right? So this has been repeated in the examiner's report. This means the examiner will be going on asking certain questions which are core to your syllabus. Okay. I looked at the November examiner's report, right? Because this November 2015 is similar to what we have currently, and it deals with IT industry, right, and a service. One of the main problems in providing a service is making sure hours are fully utilized and charged out to customers. This concept, you need to get it into your head, right? Because I'm employing X amount of people. My idea is that I need to charge out, their hours. They need to be involved in projects. The projects need to consume their number of hours, right? And also, you are looking at something, when it comes to systems, you are looking at total cost of ownership, or TCO, total cost of ownership. So as an end user, I'm always looking at having a TCO which is much lower, right? Every time I'm looking at, I want a TCO which is much lower. And there are a lot of things in the market now which is done in order for companies to have a lower TCO, right? So candidates who understood the business model achieved higher marks than who clearly did not. Okay. Now, this is a big part of our syllabus, ethics. And I thought there are some models that I'll be talking about today in this masterclass, because it's important that we talk about these models, and because you can use them, right? Ethics is something the examiner is extremely interested. And it is not that he's going to ask you this straightforward question, direct question on ethics. It might be, there might be plenty of opportunities for you to bring up the ethics topic and talk about it, right? So how would you address these ethical questions, right? This is quite important. Now, you need to talk about, CIMA Code of Conduct has, we look at the CIMA Code of Conduct to review and analyze the ethical issue, right? So how will you deal with it? You first check your facts, right? First thing what you do is check your facts. You may have to rewrite this is the issue. Is it ethical or is it legal? Right? Identify which fundamental principle has been affected here. Right? Who are the affected parties? Possible causes of action. Right? And then going into legal professional services, and finally to refuse to remain associated with this particular conflict, right? So there is a particular structure when you're answering an ethical question. Don't forget it, right? Because you can write two sentences saying, well, I think this situation is unethical and the company should not be going ahead with it, right? That is where the examiner tells you, well, this answer lacks depth and breadth, right? The examiner is looking for 5-6 steps of how did you achieve this. This is my situation in the company. Is it illegal? Is it ethical? What are the principles, right? So you remember the 5 principles. What has been compromised? One or many? Who is affected in this? Who are the stakeholders who are affected in this situation, right? And what is our action that we will be taking? So there are key, the CIMA ethics is there: integrity, objectivity, right? Professional competence and due care, confidentiality, professional behavior. Now, in this industry that we are in, I want to ask a question from you guys. What are the things that might be coming up all the time, right? When we look at this ethical, the principles, what might get compromised frequently in this particular IT industry? What do you think? I like to get your answers. If you can put it in the chat box, please. What do you think? What professional? Okay. Professional, yes. Yeah. We will come up with a lot of issues around professional competency and due care. Anything else? Anything else that you guys think? Like professional behavior? What about confidentiality? What do you think? Because these guys are actually going in, working with the clients on very confidential data, right? Do you think confidentiality will play a part? Yes. Exactly. Yeah, Ferry, that's right. Okay, so confidentiality will be a big one here because so Santiago says the services are generic but not on confidentiality. Don't understand what you meant there, but anyway, what I'm saying is these guys, SparkSpace, for example, goes to work with their clients, right? They go to work with the clients, and the clients have very confidential data. They are setting up the systems, the hardware, so that the clients will be able to use this for their information, and they work with the clients on getting this data and so on and so forth. They have access to all this information, right? So confidentiality becomes really important, especially in today's day and age, right? And they are in industries which is quite sensitive, right? Like weather, right? Then they also are in corporate payment gateways, right? Again, they have very access to a lot of confidential information. So the people that they hire also have to have very strict code of conduct, right? So very important here, because if they don't have good ethics, their reputation is going to go, and then that's where they're going to lose business. And this day and age, data breaches are very high, Okay, it's quite high, and you can see a lot of companies are getting fined for these data breaches, right? So we need to be very careful here. Then we have to look at the threats that affect the principal, right? What are the threats? There are 5 categories that are threats for these principles, right? Conflict of interest, right? Then the second one is self-review threat, when you're required to evaluate the results of previous judgment or service. So there are basically all these threats will be there and impacting our 5 principles, right? And basically this will come about in a situation, right? In a situation where the company has to respond to, right? Like I said, the company will not, the examiner will not ask you a direct question, right? But an indirect way it will be asked, and you have the opportunity to bring in this ethics, right? So here you go. Again, just to emphasize the issue, what makes this an ethical issue, who is impacted, right? The legal commercial implications, and when we are providing recommendations, provide some long-term, short-term as well, right? Long-term, short-term as well. Yeah, that's important. So we just spoke about the principles right now, and then you also need to look at the Mandela's matrix, right? Suchi, yes, Suchi, let me go to what you meant. Could you please go to the previous slide for a moment? Okay, let me see. 1 second. Is this the one, Suchi, that you mentioned? The one on threats, yes. So this is the code identifies 5 categories of common threats to the principles, right? This is what it is, the 5 categories of threats, right? So this can happen to us, familiarity threat, right? People become the people that we send to our client, they become very familiar with the client, they build up that rapport, the client drops the guard as well, and then things that you will not be doing with an unknown person, with an unknown person there will be very clear boundaries as to this is my data, this is how you access, etc., etc. But in this case, because of that familiarity, it may drop, right? The guard may drop, and the client may, divulge or, give information to our staff which should not be given, right? Even then, our staff, in this case, SparkSpace, we need to be very, when with the familiar, we should not be having people who are constantly year after year working with a certain client because of this familiarity threat. We should understand these are the threats that are there. So it's like in an audit situation, right? Now external auditors, in order to avoid this familiarity, what do they do? Every 3 years they rotate the external auditors, right? Every 3 years. So something similar we have to be doing. We should not have our staff, constantly working with one client. We need to reduce that threat. I hope it's clear to you all. Okay, the scenario may come in different ways. You need to look at this and interpret. So I've just taken the familiarity threat and explained to you. Right. Now let us go into the next areas. Okay, now we spoke about value chain, right? The value chain, now they will not ask you to draw the value chain, they'll not ask you to go and name the components of the value chain, but what you need to understand about the value chain is, okay, we've got these components, right? There is a support activity, there are operational primary activities. That is given. This structure is there in any company in the world. Okay? Now, the question is, how do we increase our margin? Our margin increases if we can reduce the cost here, and also if we can give an additional value added service to our customers. So the two things is the most important: reduction of cost and value added service, in order for us to increase the margin, right? So this is what this whole thing is about, reducing the cost. Can you tell me how we would reduce the cost? Right? In any company, I'm not saying SparkSpace, any company, how can you use this and reduce the cost? How would we do that? Any ideas? Any ideas? So one way is you need to evaluate the non-value adding activities of each of these areas. Another tool that will complement you in this is the activity-based costing, right? So if you have implemented that, that will kind of help you as well, because all what you have to do is identify in each of these sections, right, what are the non-value added activities and eliminate them, right? Look at activities that are costing a lot of money, but we need to have them there. Look at the possibilities of either outsourcing them or doing it differently. Okay, so you need to basically look at your support activities, identify, right, how do I need to manage my support activities, right, so that I can increase the margin. Primary activities, how can I optimize these, right? Now when we say the value added service to our other customers, what are we trying to do? We need to understand what is their value chain, right? I need to understand my customer's value chain, right? What is the customer wanting to do, right? Based on that, I'm able to then see, right, this is what my customer wants. What do you think the weather department, that is my big customer, what do you think they will want, right? For what is their KPI? So basically you're looking at the customer's KPIs and saying, how can I augment those KPIs? How can I support them? Right? How can I then, the customer will become and work with you as a true partner. You become the customer's true partner, right? You work hand in hand, right? Now, what about, let's go behind, let's go to this side of it, right? Downstream, right? We looked at upstream. Now let's go here. Supplier, right? Supplier, we need to tell our suppliers, guys, this is what is important to us for our value chain, right? For our KPIs. So you educate them as well, right? These guys. So they are able to structure their value chain and the product in such a way that they become also a great partner to you. So you have good connection here, right? So this is what the value chain will really provide you, right? Invent new, better ways to do activities, combine activities, manage the linkages in its own value chain. You might be able to actually combine activities of yours and the customers, and maybe do some work that these guys are doing in your area, and then provide that value addition, right? Hope that is very clear to you when it comes to the value chain. So in a value chain, it's not about talking each area, what does it do, right? But more towards how can you contribute to that margin. Okay. Any questions in the value chain? Hope it's clear. Right. So in our value chain, what do you think we can do better? Right? What do you think we can do better with SparkSpace? What do you guys think? If I look at the SparkSpace value chain and the margins, if I'm to get a higher margin, what do you think that we should be doing? I want some explanation now put up in the chat. Some ideas from you guys. Yeah. So what are the things that SparkSpace can do to improve their margins, right? What can we do? Any comments? Right, reduce operational costs, increase quality of service. So operational costs, what do you think are their main operational costs? Where do you think it is? Do you have any idea? Service cost, right? So how can they break it down further and then go into the root cause and see what service, what cost is actually triggering this bigger cost, right? And then see how can I actually simplify it. Yeah, how can I simplify it? Now, quality of service as well. What can we do here? Increase the quality of service. What are some of the things that you can do here? Any ideas? And also look at the next part of that is you looking at KPIs for each one of them, right? So let us go to that next slide. Now we need to look at our Mandela's matrix here. We will be, whether it's if there are protesters, like if you're looking at unions, funding, new projects, investments, all of them, we need to look at who are my key stakeholders, right? Who are the key stakeholders? Because they are the ones who can really create a lot of problems. So in that sense, what we're trying to do is earlier on identify the stakeholders, lobby for us or for our ideas and lobby with them, right? And tell them, okay, this is our ideas. Go to them separately and talk about our ideas and lobby, right? That is important. And our communication to our stakeholders, especially the key ones, is going to be very different. It's not going to be emails. It will be face-to-face conversations, very frequent conversations, right? So it is because these are the guys who can stop our projects, right? Who have a lot of say in this. So therefore we need to have a good relationship with them, right? And this is the influence, this is the interest. These guys have high influence, high interest. These guys also have high influence but low interest, right, at this point in time. So the way you communicate to each of these quadrants will differ, right? But you need to be aware of the stakeholders and where they are in this quadrant in order to have a successful operation, right? Any operation. This one you can use in everyday life as well as even in your professional life. You can use it because it's a fantastic tool to work with. Okay, PESTEL analysis is very important for us. Why? Because our environment is constantly changing. We are blessed with an environment which is not static. It will change every 6 months or even shorter period of time. So we have to have a organization that is adaptable to this kind of change, right? It has to happen all the time. So we should also be prepared and say, listen, our structure, our people, their mentality should be such that we are open to change, right? Otherwise it will not work. And if you're looking at a new product, even your existing stuff, you need to constantly look at your PESTEL, right? Especially the legal aspects that's coming on, right? Because there is not, our industry has not been there for long. So we don't have very strong rules, regulations in this. And whatever that we have also keeps on changing. Hence, we need to be aware of our PESTELs, right? So, 5 forces we will look at when we are trying to go into the new markets, new products we're trying to bring in, and even in the existing market, right? So we try to manage. What do you think our current the rivalry? Is it low? Is it medium? Is it high? What do you think for SparkSpace? Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone else? We are in a highly competitive market. It's in the growth phase. New things are getting thrown at us. Buyers wanting new stuff, right? They come up with all kinds of challenging new things that they want. Suppliers are also bringing new stuff into the market. Substitutes galore, right? Lots of substitutes. Because it's in a growth phase, we got new people coming into the market. So this is a place, if you want to have a peaceful, laid-back life, this is certainly not the place not the industry that you want to be in, right? It's certainly not the industry that you want to be in, because there's a lot of action happening all the time, right? And this is quite a lively place. So with Porter's 5 forces, nothing to say, but it's a very high, the rivalry. Yeah. Now the product life cycle, what do you think about this? I want to get an understanding what you guys think about the product life cycle here. What do you think about the product life cycle? So what do you think about our products? Any ideas? Yes, I like the way Kim Roy is thinking. So depending on the type of product, right? Depends. So the BCG matrix will also play a role here, right? If you don't know, just Google BCG matrix. It will give you an idea, because the industry is in a growth phase, but each of the products could be will have different product life cycles, right? And also the product life cycles of a product from it may differ from country to country, as you know. In the Western world, a product might be obsolete, but if you look at in a place like Africa, the product may not be obsolete, right? Because they don't have it. Therefore, in a country there, they might welcome that particular product. So you need to look at the product life cycle in a bit more in depth, because for different products you'll have different life cycles. So as I think in the chat box as well, you guys have quite correctly identified, and you're talking about HPC great growth, right? Servers, it's matured, saturated. So yeah, so that's a good identification, right? And then we are also looking at differentiation strategies. Are we going to go ahead with it? Again, certain models that we have currently, and saying, well, we've got certain products. Are we going to go ahead are we going to adapt the differentiation strategy here? So when we look at our market, what do you guys think? What type of strategy should we adapt here? What do you guys think? Any ideas? You read the case study. When you look at our generic strategies, what do you think that we should adapt? Do you think we should differentiate? What do you think? Should we? Should we not? Is there an advantage? Well, looking at the at the case study, it seems like we looked at our porters just now, right? And we said, well, this is a very active place. Now, if we are working in a very active industry with a lot of people there, we need to see how we can differentiate, right? We need to, yeah, Kim, thank you. We need to differentiate. We need to differentiate it very well, and to be able to then link up with partners, right? Partners, and partner with our own the clients, because we become their business partner. So when they think of changes, whatever it is, they always look to us. They're not even thinking about anybody else, right? So we need to have that differentiation coming in. Yeah, that's pretty important. Let us go into the next one. Yes, so there is a comment there. Let me take that comment. The case Ferry mentions, case study suggests SparkSpace is going for broad differentiation, but is it right? Can we question it? Yeah, it depends, right? So you see certain companies, if you just look at Oracle, right? Let's look at Oracle. Now, Oracle started with software. Then they acquired Sun Microsystems in 2010, right? Paid a huge sum of money, 7 billion or so, acquired them. But then they have got two companies coming together, right? And two kind of hardware, software. But also you can see certain companies, when they acquire, or they have certain sectors, they're able to spin them out, right? They're able to kind of, if they want to, bring them into the organization or take them out as well. So if we are looking at differentiation, we can look at we have to look at certain sectors as well. How we're going to differentiate, right? So certain products that we offer, we need to differentiate it, yeah, so that we can be specialists in certain sectors that we offer the service. Now, when it comes to any investment, I like this to use this model, which will give a very good structure. If you're evaluating any project, right, which will give you a nice structure, whether it's suitable. Does it link with your strategy? Is it feasible? Do we have the funds? Now, in our case, we know we don't have that amount of money lying around. So a lot of the things, even though we want to do, we might be constrained because of the availability of funds. And that's where we need to think creatively. Can we partner with others to come with us and work in this space? They will fund, but we will give our knowledge and know-how and access to certain markets, right? Can we work like that? Is there a possibility? Acceptability by stakeholders, right? Certain projects that we're thinking of going might be high risks, and maybe the stakeholder does not want this kind of thing. So you need to gauge that as well. And then looking at the suitability, sustainability of it, right? Again, like I need to bring what Sandy commented before in the beginning of the class. So you're not talking about, you don't just bring these things, the framework in and talk about the framework for 75 minutes, 75% of the time, and then bring in your the business. It's just that this framework is there to help you, but you always need to talk about your the business problem, the issue that they're facing, right? All the time referring to SparkSpace, this is the issue that they're facing. Yeah, that's quite important. And I want to emphasize one thing, because this is a mistake I have done in my final exam. And I don't want the other students to repeat this. The mistake I did was I used to, in my final exam, I failed a number of times a particular subject, right? And I just couldn't figure out the reason I was failing this subject till a lecturer of mine read my answer and kindly said, because he first said, okay, I want you to write the answers, right? When I started writing the answer, he identified where I was going wrong, okay? And then said, well, this is the reason. The reason is you're not relating your the case study to your answer. What does this mean? I'm not, let's say if it's SparkSpace and they're talking about an investment in this case. So I'm talking about the investment without the name of SparkSpace even coming into the answer. I'm talking about the investment, looking at the surface model and describing this whole thing, whether it's good, bad or ugly, right? But not bringing SparkSpace name into it, not kind of linking that scenario. That actually made me fail the exam. So don't ever do that mistake, right? Be careful. Balance scorecard is another one that they ask you. They ask you KPIs as well. So you need to understand what your balance scorecards are in this case, right? What are the 4 quadrants? What kind of KPIs can come in to these 4 quadrants? And I've given some KPIs. Like from a customer perspective, you look at service excellent, trusted business partner, that the KPIs for that, right? So learning and growth, we need to hire people. What about our training, right? And then look at what are aligned to their personal goals. If you want to keep them, there is an issue with people because people is a key factor to us. How are we going to keep them though, right? How are we going to retain them? That's very important. Business processes. This is the way that you can link this to our, if you saw our scorecard, right? This is how we're going to reduce the operational costs. And all of this, of course, will come out in our financials, in our financial KPIs, right? So this is an area that you should be looking into as well. Governance, important aspect. the different types of committees that we need, and we will need this to run our business. And the governance plays a big role. Again, ethics also will come into play. I looked at the industry analysis. I just want to say whether Sunday is here just now. I saw him. Just let me check whether Sunday is here. Hi, Sunday.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, you're back. Thank you. So I've got this industry analysis. You also may have some thoughts around the industry analysis. Do you want to talk about it?
In terms of SparkSpace themselves?
Yes.
Or other yeah. In terms of comparing them with BitBunch,
yeah,
they have a lot of similarities,
right?
Which might indicate that they could work together.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
I'll just showcase some of the things that I have. Maybe we can chat about that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when we look at security, data security is one of the key things that I've seen, and you see a lot of companies like Facebook, Evernote, Adobe, and multiple different banks having issues with data security and breaches, right? So we are in this situation as well. We are in this industry. So this is something that will be quite critical for them in their operations, as well as when they come to recruit people, right? Recruiting and also continuous training. In the training, they need to emphasize and have this type of training when it comes to security all along, because you need to have a culture of data security, how to protect our data, because if there is any breaches, that there goes our reputation, right? Any views on this, Sandy?
Yes, definitely. And certainly when you think about what some of the big firms in the States have done, and the States government as well, when they've found hackers, so these people who've been hacking into systems, they've tended to recruit them.
Exactly.
And to use them as their unique sort of differentiation, that if they've got the hackers who are the latest stage, so they are able to help prevent other hackers. In Britain we use the expression the poacher turned gamekeeper,
yeah.
And it's exactly that. It's the person who was seen as the villain, who is recognized as being incredibly intelligent as far as these systems are concerned, and is now beating the professionals. I think alongside that, it has a secondary risk that you've got to keep these people engaged.
Yeah.
They have a slightly different personality to your conventional corporate bureaucrat.
Yes.
And they are a little bit excitement seeking.
Yes.
So that then adds to the human resources management aspect of the business.
Correct.
But I think
yeah.
critically, if you've got the best hackers working for you, and you've got the human resources ability to actually manage and harness those rather strange personalities, you've got the business that will outdo any other business. Because ultimately, when somebody comes along and wants a server, what is it that they want to buy? They want to buy the benefits, and they want to feel completely safe.
Yes.
In the knowledge that the data that's going to get stored on that server is not going to get hacked.
Yes.
And if you're using top class hackers to actually try to beat the system in that sort of quality control situation type setup, then it gives you the edge over your rivals.
Yeah, they're spot on. That's really true. It just reminded me of that movie Catch Me If You Can. It's the same kind of concept, and finally they hired the guy to actually catch the others. Because like you said, their thinking is a bit different, and they are seeking for kind of excitement where the normal employees they don't have that kind of mentality. However, you need this type of people to be amongst your workforce in order to protect. Yeah, that's a very good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another one is related to compliance. Again, similar in the security side of it. The compliance will differ from country to another, and of course, you will get fined by multiple governments, multiple authorities, regulatory authorities, if you don't have proper security and if you don't align to those compliances. So that's another area you have to be quite careful about. Anything on this, Sandy, original equipment manufacturer, because you get the OEMs, then you get the original design manufacturer, and you get the value-added reseller. A lot of words, new words in our exam. And it's, of course, in the IT industry, and there's nothing new in the IT industry.
Yes, I think there could be all sorts of developments. We've got a lot of little businesses. I saw your slide on the value chain and
Yes.
the other value chain surrounding the SparkSpace one.
Yeah.
And there's these little manufacturers that are supplying these great big manufacturers that are in this sort of generic business.
Yes.
But you can see that these links in the chain, these links very high up in the chain, ultimately could have a strong influence on SparkSpace's success.
Yes.
That they must be fairly vulnerable to these bigger operators trying to do a bit of backward vertical integration, which would then give one particular supplier a bit more of an opportunity to sort of crank up prices and so on, because they would have control over that particular specialist source.
Mm-hmm.
So it remains an area of sort of vulnerability that SparkSpace has got.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, if these smaller suppliers have problems, cash flow problems, or I was talking about something catching on fire, but
Yes.
they're very small setups, so they could very easily suffer those sort of hiccups.
Yes.
That then have a reverberate and cause us a major headache.
Correct, because the risk is pretty high, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to do. I've got the sheet in front of me. I'm just quickly looking.
So we also have we as SparkSpace, we are that value-added reseller, and resells software, hardware, and we provide that professional service. And I think this is where we can create a really good partnership with both the vendor as well as the customer, right? And we are in between. So we have a very good, if we work out, if you work our position well, we can be a very important player to the supplier as well as our vendor, as well as our customer. So it is a unique position, but of course we need to find out how we are going to be adding that value and what are we bringing in right, bringing into the table for our vendor as well as our customer, right? If we want to have a seat at the table with both of them, we need to provide something unique, right, and have that relationship. Again, the people that we have are the ones who are going to make that differentiation in this space. Anything that you want to add, Sandy, here?
No, I agree with you entirely. I think that it's that critical project management that they offer to the end customers that incorporates, or I suppose it gives the end customers the opportunity to pick and choose, a sort of pick and mix from the design consultancy, the installation, the maintenance, the assembly. And rather like that point that we were looking at a few minutes ago, the idea that there's no point buying a service system unless you feel absolutely confident about the security.
Yes.
But also, typically, you're not in the server business. So what you want is that reassurance that you can pick up the telephone at the drop of a hat and call an expert who will give you an instant response. And I think that there's a useful parallel that certainly many UK firms use Sage software.
Yes.
And Sage charge a very high premium for this, but what they are selling, as far as you and me can be concerned, is they're selling peace of mind.
Yes.
And people operating the Sage system, just as they would be operating the server for SparkSpace, are able to have that peace of mind that if the slightest thing was to go wrong, then they're not going to be left high and dry. And it's sort of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they can then call that sort of helpline,
right,
and there'll be an instant sort of person there with the expertise to do it.
Yes.
When SAP is often introduced, and I'm sure that there must be SAP examples all over the world that people can think of, but certainly the SAP examples that I've come across, they will have the SAP experts at the installation of the system, and they will stay with them for about 3 weeks, and then there'll be a follow-up that anybody can sort of contact them, and they do try and train people within the company to be the sort of czars, as it were, who are able to help out, but they retain the SAP central help desk.
Yes.
In case of any other issues, again selling peace of mind.
Yeah, definitely. So what is a value added reseller? I have given a little bit of view of what they do, and because then you get a feel of what these guys can be doing and where they can go into in the future as well. I think playing the value added reseller in this kind of market is just my personal view, is pretty good, because you're not your money is not tied up, and technology is changing so much in such a quick time. It's happening so quickly that you need to be able to be on top of things, and it's actually the bigger guys who are pretty good at this. So if you're cash strapped, and if you're having issues like this, going into manufacturing or going into that space can be quite a dicey situation. You're in a quite a dangerous situation where you need to think of it long term as well. What we say is, if you look at SparkSpace, you need to look at the PESTEL factors on an ongoing basis, and actually work with your clients very closely, bring them new options, new products. It's always easy to work with your known clients and bring new stuff to them, rather than looking for new clients, right? So if you are looking into funding or acquisition, so that's, we need to look at, if you're looking at acquisitions or any other thing going into software, SparkSpace needs to have a lot of money to do that, right? Any views on this, Sunday?
I think combining the point that you were making earlier, when you were looking at the balanced scorecard,
yes,
with the point that you were making just now in terms of where our niche is.
Yes.
I think that that innovation and learning area is what's giving us the differentiation. And I think if we can maintain the innovation and learning, then it means that when we're sending out our sales staff to talk to prospective customers, and also when we are supporting our customers, we are supporting them as, I think they use the expression bleeding edge, but certainly very much at the cutting edge of what's going on. And the customer then has an element of confidence in us that they wouldn't necessarily have. And I think perhaps if you think about the Ferrari road cars that are made along the lines of the Ferrari racing cars, then the customer feels that they're buying into something which is superior. Mm-hmm. And I think along the lines of your later comment, that really the way that fits their mission is to go forward in terms of the supply line, and rather than to go backwards. So that to go back into manufacturing wouldn't be an area of strength of theirs, whereas to go forward with their particular knowledge and expertise would be the way for them to achieve the high margin and to be different from their competitors.
Exactly, yeah. Thanks. So we looked at, we've just coming to the end of it, end of our session. Looked at the financing. I mean, we are stuck for cash. It is a problem. Income, we can look at hardware. So different sorts of income we need to think of. It's not the traditional ways of just selling what we have been selling in the past. Now we've got hardware as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, right? We kind of need to move away from this traditional sales mindset that we've had before. By having this hardware, platform and software as a service, we're going to be looking at income streams coming on a regular basis, but it's much smaller than your big sales, the traditional sales. But by doing this, you're opening the market to a much larger number of people who will be able to afford your services, right? Previously, maybe they have not been able to afford it because it's that kind of traditional sales, that approach that we had. Yeah, now things are going very different, right? Any views here?
No, very much along the same lines.
Yeah.
And certainly there was an article that was talking about the smaller firms accessing it via the cloud.
Yeah. Adapting to change, we need to be really good at this, and also we should be in a position to guide our customers as well in this space. And so again, an area that we can specialize in and work with and get good returns, because change every 3 years, new things are coming up, or even less, right? So we need to be able to adapt to this quite quickly. Risk is something we need to think about. We need to look at the risk in an enterprise-wide and see how we can manage it. So it's important that we have an enterprise-wide risk department, right? I think this is kind of the last slide, because again, talking about staff, talking about people, they are the most important asset for our company, because all new ideas, innovation comes from people and not machines. So it's important that, and it's a growth market, so people are going into different companies as well. So we should be able to retain, manage, and give them what they want, what their aspirations are. We need to link up with their career goals as well. That's about it for now. And Sandy, any last words from you before we wind up this session?
Not really. Just a little add-on to the point that you were making there about and linking it into the balanced scorecard again.
Yes.
It's the development of the staff that is going to continue to be the area where they're able to differentiate and achieve their margin at the greatest extent.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Sandy, and thanks everyone for joining us. Good luck at your exams, and we hope to see you in our next session with Ultimate Access. All right.
Thank you all very much, thank you, Andrew. It's been lovely to do this with you.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.